It's
Okay, Erev Tov. It's been quite a while since we had this shiur with all kinds of things happening in between. The last thing that we actually did on this topic was related to do we understand? How much can we comprehend about Hashem? We can't. Hashem, the revelation of Hashem is through a cloud. You look in Tanakh, the way Hashem's presence is represented is by a cloud. It's not just a way to show Hashem's presence. A cloud is saying that Hashem is something that we cannot see. That hiding Hashem is the way that we can somehow, to some extent, comprehend what we think we comprehend. We don't really comprehend Hashem. So we have to come to terms with that and base our emunah more on longing and yearning for something than knowing something. As HaRav Kook explained, we saw this. It's like a person who wants to know his origin. I compared it to a person who's adopted and wants to know his biological parents because that's where he comes from. So it's like, I want to know, what is the source of my life and the world and so on. But it's more of a cry for a longing out to something than something that I know. But after that, after we dealt, for a few sessions, we dealt with that concept. Then we ask ourselves, okay, but it's nice to long for something and yearn for something, but what is the basis of our emunah? So I do want to say a few things about that today, and then to move on to the next stage of our studying, which will be about the idea of Hashem Echad. What does it mean? What is the oneness here that we're talking about? And what does that have to do with the question of faith and heresy? And hopefully we'll get to that today, so let's get going. So let's share screen. Did I find the right one? Find it. It was there on my computer. Yeah. Okay, there we are. Good. Okay. This is what I want. Okay. So the very famous pasuk in Aseret HaDibrot in Sefer Shmot, the pasuk says in Hebrew, Anochi Adonai Elohecha asher hotzeiticha me'eretz Mitzrayim mibeit avadim. In English, I am the Lord your God who took you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. There's a lot to discuss about this pasuk, but right now I'd like to focus on one thing. The Rambam counts this pasuk as one of the Taryag, 613 mitzvot. Actually, the Rambam puts things in a certain order, structure, meaning he doesn't, when he lists the 613 mitzvot, they are not by the order of the Chamisha Chumshei Torah. If you follow the Torah, the first mitzvah is Pro Uvu, and Anochi Hashem Elokecha will be somewhere there when you get to the mitzvot in Sefer Shmot. But the Rambam starts with this, mitzvah Taseh Aleph, number one, because this is the foundation of everything else. And the Rambam says, this is the commandment by which we were commanded to believe in the existence of God. That is, we are to believe that there is a first cause, an origin, the one who brings all existing things into being. This is the meaning of the verse. I am the Lord your God, Anochi Adonai Elohecha. A few details about what the Rambam says. First of all, we were commanded to, then translation here in English is believe. The Hebrew was leha'amin, good translation, believe, but it's all translation from Arabic. The Rambam wrote most of his philosophical books and other things, not everything, some of the things he wrote in Hebrew, but philosophical books, including this Sefer HaMitzvot, he wrote in Arabic. It's just the language of the time and place, like an American rabbi writing books on Judaism in English, or a French rabbi writing them in French. The Rambam writes in, philosophical Arabic in those times. And in Arabic, I have no knowledge of it, but what I do know is that in different translations, or different parts of things that Rambam wrote, sometimes it's quoted as leha'amin, and sometimes it's quoted as leida. Is it believe is it to believe or to know? Now, you don't know Hashem, but is it the difference between What does believe mean? To know is to kind of study something or reach this conclusion through some kind of study and thinking. So maybe that's a better translation to the Arabic, not to the Hebrew. Maybe the Hebrew was not such a good translation that I took from, but it is the common translation. In any case, that's an important comment, but that's not the main one for today. I'd like to contrast this to something else. Here's something interesting. Ibn Ezra, Rabbi Avraham Ibn Ezra, famous commentary on the Torah, as he goes through commentary through all the 5 books in Sefer Shemot, when he reaches the 10 commandments, he says the following. Rabbi Yehuda Levi of blessed memory. Rabbi Yehuda Levi is the poet. He wrote very famous poetry and also wrote the book Sefer HaKuzari, which is a question and answer kind of, maybe you can make a play out of it. It's kind of a kind of putting on a play of a discussion between a non-Jewish king and a Jewish sage, and the king is looking for the true belief, and he asks all kinds of questions, and the rabbi, the Jewish sage, answers him, and Rabbi Avraham Ibn Ezra says that Rabbi Yehuda Levi asked him, he asked me, why does it say in our pasuk, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, and not who created the heavens and the earth and created you? The beginning is creation. Shouldn't you start with the creation and not with Yetziat Mitzrayim? Says the Ibn Ezra, and this was my answer to him. Know that people are not equal in their level of faith in their hearts in the exalted one. The masses believe what they hear that their masters told them, but they haven't, they haven't studied it or gotten into it in any kind of depth. They believe in what their masters told them. A higher level is those who saw it written in the Torah that Hashem gave to Moshe. They study it, they read it, but they don't get into it in depth. But if a heretic were to challenge them, saying there is no God, they would fall silent, for they would not know how to respond. So let's move up another level. However, one whose heart inspires him to study wisdom, which serves as steps leading upward to his desired goal, will come to recognize the acts of Hashem. Therefore, it's so interesting, I didn't notice this before, but Ibn Ezra does not say we'll come to recognize Hashem. We know that's not possible, to recognize the acts of Hashem. His faith will not come from, I found God, I see him. His faith will come from recognizing the acts of Hashem in reality. Therefore, going back to our pasuk, it says, for the enlightened person, I am the Lord, and adds, who brought you out, so that both the wise and unlearned can understand. Let's go back to the pasuk. The pasuk says, Anochi Adonai Elohecha asher hotzeiticha me'eretz Mitzrayim mibeit avadim. The question that Rabbi Yehuda Levi asked Rabbi Avraham Ibn Ezra is, why did you say took out of the land of Egypt, and not who created the world and created myself? Rabbi Yehuda Levi in Sefer HaKuzari puts this question in the mouth of the non-Jewish king, the Kuzari, who asks the Jewish sage, and the Jewish sage says to him, because who can testify to Hashem creating the world? Who was there at the time who can testify to it? Whereas Yetziat Mitzrayim is something we saw, or Am Yisrael saw with our own eyes, and that's why, that's the basis. Meaning, Rabbi Yehuda Levi, the basis of faith in his understanding is not philosophical, it's not wisdom, it's the revelation of Hashem, Har Sinai, Mitzrayim. And that is part of the philosophy of Rabbi Yehuda Levi. What Hashem revealed to us is higher than anything we can reach by our own philosophy. And Ibn Ezra, and now let's take another look at the Rambam. What does the Rambam quote from the pasuk? The first mitzvah is to believe or to know that there is a first cause and origin. Again, I don't know him. I don't know what he is. I know that he is the first cause of everything that exists. He's the origin of everything that exists. He's the one that brings all existing things into being. And what part of the pasuk does he quote? Anochi Adonai Elohecha, I am the Lord your God. What doesn't he quote? Rambam? Who took you out of Mitzrayim? You get the idea? Rabbi Yehuda Levi only quotes, I am Hashem who took you out of Mitzrayim. That's the point. In creation of the world, I wasn't there. I can't testify to it. So here's the main part of the pasuk, according to Rabbi Yehuda Levi, is Hotzeticha me'eretz Mitzrayim. This Am Yisrael can testify to. The Rambam says the main part of the pasuk is Anochi Adonai Elohecha, because it's all about philosophy, it's all about wisdom, of intellect, of understanding. There has to be a first cause, an origin that everything comes from. And that is, I don't know what Hashem is. This is my faith in Hashem. I have an idea of what my faith in Hashem is. What does Ibn Ezra say? I think this is a terrific Ibn Ezra. They're all good. I think it's fascinating how each one took the part of the pasuk that was stronger in his eyes. What does Ibn Ezra say? What part of the pasuk does he take?
Hashem hotzeticha miMitzrayim, but it doesn't say that he created the world.
No, but which part of the pasuk does he take? What? Look at the last lines.
Yeah.
Therefore, it says, for the enlightened person, I am the Lord, and adds, who brought you out so that both the wise and the unlearned can understand. So if Rabbi Yehuda Halevi quotes, who took you out of Mitzrayim, that's the basis, the revelation. And Rambam quotes, I am the Lord. It's something more of wisdom and intellect. Rabbi Avraham Ibn Ezra says you need both parts of the pasuk. You have the part that the Rambam said is for people like the Rambam, and the part that Rabbi Yehuda Halevi said is people are not so enlightened and not so learned. We need both parts of the pasuk. These are two avenues that Ibn Ezra even says one is on a higher level than the other. The level of study and wisdom is a higher level. But we need both parts because there are always people in the world. Some are more learned than others. People are different, are not equal in their level of faith, in their understanding of it. So we need to have both parts of the pasuk. So I think if I take this as a whole, I can see, I can envision, so to speak, we know someone who wrote a book of discussions with different Jewish philosophers. It's a very interesting concept. It's very creative. It's like he sits and has a discussion with all these Jewish philosophers who have been dead for centuries. He brings them to life and has these discussions with them, and they answer him or his understanding of what they would have said if he had discussed this with them. And so I can envision two Jews sitting on two sides of the table, Rambam and Rabbi Yehuda Halevi, and arguing about what's the right way to faith. And Ibn Ezra walking in and saying, guys, stop arguing. Some people need you, some people need you. We need both avenues. And this is part of what I want to say today. We can't find God. And the Rambam did not find God. He says, I understand through intellect and learning and wisdom that there is an origin, a first cause. Rabbi Yehuda Halevi didn't find God. He said there was a revelation. I saw God's power. That's how we know that there is Hashem. So each one has his way to reach a certain basis, which is the basis of his faith, even though no one finds Hashem himself. So this is what I'm trying to say. If we say, I have a yearning, a longing, I can't find Hashem. But a person who wants to, or who wants to be objective as anyone can be, and check out these issues, if he finds a path to faith, if he finds a basis for faith, he will find it in one of these different avenues, and that will be the basis of his faith. For me personally, I find creation to be an inspiration. I find sometimes to some extent philosophy, but it's not as strong as it is for the Rambam. I find Am Yisrael to be a very strong inspiration for my faith. The history, which is, I've been around. No, I have not been around. I live 1,000 years after Ibn Ezra, Rabbi Yehuda Halevi, and 800-900 years after the Rambam. So, I can see how history developed later on, and I see the amazing history with its ups and downs, but the coming to life, the resurrection, not of an individual person who came back to life, but of Am Yisrael stepping out of their graves, just like Yechezkel prophesied, and prophecies of Moshe and the Torah. So this is very strong for me, but different people might have different frameworks that are the basis of their faith. And now I'd like to show you something further, and we'll open for discussion after. We're going to see a pasuk in Yeshayahu and a Zohar about it. Okay, brace yourselves. We're going to study Zohar, Kabbalah. But first, a pasuk in Yeshayahu. Two psukim in Yeshayahu. I'll read them in English. Now, to whom will you compare me that I should be equal, says the Holy One. I always think of Adon Olam, where we say, I have a siddur right here behind me, Adon Olam Asher Malach, B'terem Kol Yetzer Torah, Leit Nasa B'chefzo Kol, and so on. Vehu Echad, Ve'en Sheni Lo Le'achbira. There is no other one to which we compare and connect God. There's nothing comparable to Hashem. And this is what Yeshayahu is saying. To whom will you compare me that I should be equal? Says the Holy One. Lift up your eyes on high and see who created these. Who takes out their host by number? I'm talking about the stars. All of them he calls by name because of his great might and because he is strong in power, no one is missing. So when you're looking for Hashem, you can't compare anything to Hashem. To whom will you compare me? There's no one to compare Hashem to. Look up at creation, look up at the sky, look at the stars. Can you number all the stars? Can you give each star a name? Hashem can. And this is the power, this is the greatness of Hashem. I read in National Geographic that there are plans of scientists who want to create a telescope, want to build a giant telescope on the dark side of the moon. Why? Because on the dark side of the moon, there's no light. So there's no light interference. So if you build a giant telescope on the dark side of the moon, you'll be able to see much farther into space than you can from a telescope on planet Earth. So this is their plan. Is it going to work or not? I don't know if we'll know in our lifetime. Lifetimes, what?
Not the dark.
The far side? Why not the dark side?
There's sun on that side as well.
Okay.
2 weeks.
The relatively dark side of the moon.
The far side. There's just as much light on that side as there is on side.
I knew Mark was gonna say something.
But there's no radio.
So what does it mean that it's the far side of the moon?
It's the side that we don't see.
That we don't
Because
see.
We only see half the moon.
Right. Relative to us.
Yeah.
So it's the dark side relative to us.
It's not there.
It's not there. We don't see it. It's the far
I
side of
knew
the.
Mark was gonna say
Stupid side.
something. about
Okay.
Stupid side.
In any case,
it.
so you look up at the stars, and this is your inspiration of wow, the power of Hashem. So what is it about these psukim that's going to be special? Let's see the Zohar. Zohar says the following. This is in the introduction of the Zohar. Rabbi Shimon said, the number one sage in the Zohar is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. This is Rabbi Shimon saying to his son Elazar. What is the meaning of these? I look at this pasuk and I see, lift up your eyes on high and see who created these. What is these? It's literally meaning the stars. But what is the Zohar going to say about it? At the time when the hidden of all hidden wanted to be revealed. Okay, we're talking about Hashem, the hidden of all hidden. That's what I have to say about it. He's hidden of all hidden. Not much more that I can say. I long for him. I yearn for him. He's the hidden of all hidden. He made at the beginning a single point. Because does the world exist at all? He made a point. And this rose to become thought, a pointer that we can think about, that we can understand, and was called me in Hebrew, which in English means who? The beginning of the structure. What is this saying? Me is a question. Who? But it might not be a question. It might be it might not have a question mark after it. It might have an exclamation point after it. What do I mean? We say at the end of the tefillah, En Kelokeinu, right? We say, I'll open in the end of the tefillah in the everyday shacharit. En Keloheinu, En Kadonenu, En Kemalkeinu, En Kemosheinu. What's the next line? Mi Keloheinu, Mi Kadonenu, Mi Kemalkeinu, Mi Kemosheinu. We already answered the question. Why are you asking it? We said, En Keloheinu, En Kadonenu. Why now do you ask, Mi Keloheinu, Mi Kadonenu? Because it's not a question. The word me is not a question asking who, an exclamation saying, who is like our God? Meaning there is no one like our God. It's not a question, it's a statement. So el mi tedamyuni veshve, to whom can you compare me that I should be equal, is not a question. It's an exclamation. It's a statement. There's no one to compare Hashem to. So now when you ask, lift up your eyes on high and see who created these, you're not going to get an answer. There isn't going to be an answer. You're going to find the person. If I want to know who, what's the proper pronunciation in English? Who sewed this or sewed this cloth, this garment? Who's sewn?
So,
Who sewed this
Sewed.
garment? Hopefully I'll find an answer. I want to know. Who, I find the source sheet on something about Torah and I see, wow, very good sources. Who put together these sources? I want to know. I want to talk to him. But when I say, who created these? I don't mean to say I'm going to find them. I mean to say he's powerful. He's greater than any power that I know. It's not a question. It's saying something that I don't know and I'm not going to know. And then comes the word these. So the Zohar is saying that me is a statement of something that we don't know. It's the beginning of the structure, it's the beginning of creation. It's something beyond our comprehension. It's like a point from which the world will then develop. It stands and yet does not stand, deep and hidden within the name. It's not something that we can define. It's the beginning of human comprehension, but it's beyond our comprehension. It's like the seed of human comprehension but it's something that will always escape us, will always be, I'm looking for a different term. We can't grasp. It is only called me. Who? He desired to be revealed and to be called by his name. So he clothed himself, because we can't see him. So he clothes himself in a radiant garment and created Eile. Me, what's the pasuk? Me bara Eile. We see it as a question. Ask a question. Who created these? The Zohar is saying it's not a question, it's a statement. Me created these. That's what I'm teaching you. Me, that is beyond our comprehension, is like a point that we can't comprehend, and he wants to be revealed. He clothes himself in a radiant garment and created Eile. Eile is something tangible. The stars I can see, I can measure, I'm a very developed modern scientist. I can figure out how many light years away it is and when what happened and how many years it's been since something happened there and things like that. This is something tangible that I can hang on to, that I can see. Now, if you're thinking in Hebrew, take the letters of me and Eile, okay? Put them in a mixer, try and play around with them. What do you get? Elohim, okay? Aleph Lamed Hey of Eile, Yud Mem around me, turn them around, you get Elohim. These letters joined together and were completed in the name Elohim. And they who sinned with the golden calf said, Eile Elohecha Yisrael. These are your gods, O Israel. Meaning, if you say, here's Hashem, I'm going to show you. He has the shape of a calf. He's golden. Here he is. That's what do we say? Well, that's a sin. That's heresy. Okay? The true belief is me. There's something out there. I'm not going to ask a question because I'm not going to find an answer. I'm making a statement. Who is he? He's so powerful. But who is he who is so powerful? No one's going to see him. That's faith. Saying Eile Elohecha is not faith. Is heresy. But we do need an Eile for our religious life. Therefore, we take Eile and me and create a certain kind of complex interweaving of these two, of an understanding that we don't know Hashem, and looking for an Eile, which is something I can see, the stars in the sky, or something else. That is an Eile that I can say, me, I don't know who created this, but there's got to be something there who created this, and this is faith. I have an Eile, which is the basis of my faith, and I have a me, which always tells me that I can't define who is God and how he created and anything else, but there's something, an Eile, that gives me my faith in God. And that is all joined together in the name Eile me, or Elohim. If you never say me, you're going to be a heretic. If you never say Eile, you're not going to have any belief because you're not going to be able to cling on to anything. If you say Eile but don't say me, again, you're going to become an idol worshiper. If you say me and don't say Eile, you'll have a lot of questions, but you'll never be able to move forward on the basis of belief in your life and that's the name Elohim, which kind of mixes the two together. And this is a basis for accepting that I cannot see or define Elohim, but I can make a place for belief in Elohim in my life, which is a basis. It's like the point from which everything comes, even though it's only a point and I can't find it, but it's the basis from which everything else that I will discover in my life will come. Bakasha. Tova.
Yeah, can you please, oh, never mind.
I can put it back on. What do you
Would like
want?
the one with Rabbi Yehuda Levi.
Okay, going back to there. Here we are. You mean Ibn Ezra?
Yeah. Where is it?
Here.
Uh,
See it?
that's not, no, I'm looking for the that the Egyptians were what was it?
This is the beginning.
Anyway, what I was going to say is that the Egyptians themselves are being made to be witnesses to God's greatness. They're the ones who are made witnesses. So everything else, like if I say Hashem created the world, I don't have any witnesses. You have to believe me that God created the world because I'm telling you. But you don't have any proof to this. But Kriyat Yam Suf and the Israelites going through the sea and the Egyptians watching it and following them, that is a real.
You want to come up here?
That's the answer. That's the answer that Rabbi Yehuda, well, I didn't bring it here. That's why you don't find it. That's what Rabbi Yehuda Levi says in Sefer HaKuzari. I'm just saying that answer has to do with what he learned from Rabbi Yehuda Levi. Rabbi Yehuda Levi answered Ibn Ezra. Ibn Ezra answered Rabbi Yehuda Levi and said to him, both are valuable because you can learn from wisdom, from studying, from learning, and then you reach the Rambam's idea of Anochi Adonai Elohecha through philosophy, or you can reach it through Asher Hotzaiticha Me'eretz Mitzrayim Mibeit Avadim, even for people who are unlearned. So there are two possibilities, and Rabbi Yehuda Levi chose the second possibility in his book, and not like the Rambam, and even not like Ibn Ezra, who brought both possibilities.
But this is the best one because that you have witnesses. There you have witnesses.
Tova, that's what I said. Different people have different paths. The Rambam doesn't agree with you that that's the best one. Rabbi Yehuda Levi agrees with you that that's the best one.
Okay, I'm very happy. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I just comment on that, on where we started? Because in the English translation you have, I am the Lord your God who took you out of the land of Egypt. Now, if you start this, if you drop the first few words, then you would say, who took you out of the land of Egypt? But there's no me in the Hebrew.
There's no me, there's no question.
Yeah. So it's an interesting grammatical construct.
Because it only says Anochi.
Yeah.
And it doesn't say me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because who's speaking? Hashem is speaking.
Okay.
Well, in both instances, Hashem is speaking. Also, in the prophet, saying El mi tedamyuni. There's no one you can compare to me. To whom can you compare me? El mi tedamyuni. To whom can you compare me?
Very peculiar question.
Not a question, a statement.
Yeah. Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. No, interesting.
Okay. Anyone else?
I would just say that it's Eliezer.
Okay.
Out loud, please.
It seems like, I mean, this is pretty much what we've been saying, maybe it's very slightly differently, that the first part is philosophical and it can't be proved. It's, you could have an atheist come and say, no, the earth wasn't created this way. And whereas the second part is more scientific, or you're looking for evidence.
What's the second part?
who took you out of the land.
It's not scientific. It's experiential.
Historic.
Well,
It's you experience something.
well, science has experiences too.
Yeah, okay. But it's not coming
factual.
from thinking. It's
Factual.
coming from
Yeah, exactly.
from seeing something, experiencing something.
Exactly. It's not, it's the opposite of philosophical.
Okay.
And so when you're talking to the king of the Kuzari, you can't say, well, it's obvious that Hashem created the world. Well, because after all, the king of Kuzari could have said, no, he wouldn't have said this, but he could have said the world existed for trillions of years and came out of nothing or something like that.
Okay, I don't want to get into length into the Kuzari because that's the one I chose to skip and not bring the source itself, just to mention. It was interesting for me that I see the Ibn Ezra opening two options and Kuzari uses one and the Rambam uses the other. In short, the Kuzari is not a historical recollection of the discussions between a king of Kuzari and a Jewish sage. It's a theatrical, how would you say it? I don't want to say invention, like he made it up from nothing, because there is some historical basis for it, but it's a theatrical way of putting it together. Sorry?
Presentation.
Okay, thank you. It's a theatrical presentation of a discussion, which is actually Rabbi Yehuda Halevi putting the questions he wants to put in the king's mouth so that he can put the answers into the Jewish sages' answers. That's who he's really speaking to. Now, how does the story begin in the Kuzari? The king of Kuzar is a very religious person, according to the religion of Kuzar, of Khazaria. And then he has an angel comes to him in a dream at night and says to him, what your intentions are pure, your intentions are desired, but your actions are not desirable. And he says, oh, ignore it, it was just a dream. And then he comes back another night and another night, which sends him to seek out truth. The idea of this presentation is to say that the book opens that way because Rabbi Yehuda Halevi wants to say to us, you will not reach your goal through philosophy, only through something that's going to come to you from above. You're going to get a dream and you're going to follow that dream and you're going to connect to the Jews who saw the revelation of God in Yetziat Mitzrayim. That's how you're going to come to faith. So that's why he presents it that way. That's his presentation, Rabbi Yehuda Halevi's presentation. That's why I say, and there are other sources in the book, that he prefers revelation to philosophy. That's his position. So he wants the king to ask this question and this to be the answer. But it's interesting for me that he discussed it with Rabbi Avraham Ibn Ezra, and I can kind of go back and find the conversation between them and what Rabbi Yehuda Halevi took from it and put into his book. Okay, but the Kuzari is a broader topic in itself. Okay, Michael.
I like the discussion. It reminds me of things that I've heard before, that for people to accept that these things really happened, whether they accept that God did them or not, that one of the proofs of the Torah to the Jewish people that are born today has to be that it's the only religion where you have a book that says millions of people experienced this. And ever since then, every generation says, yeah, that happened. Yeah, my grandfather was there. Yep. Next generation. Yeah, it happened. And all the way down to now. You can use all of that to derive the idea that there had to be a cause for it, and that cause was Hashem. It's difficult to prove that, but you've got, I mean, what is a miracle? It's something that just happens every now and then. But this idea that we will accept things that you can see with your own eyes, touch with your own hands, and easier to understand and accept that, and then the philosophers can go from there.
I just want to say that for me, personally, again, this is personal. Different people have different paths. For me personally, seeing things that were written in the Torah thousands of years ago, according to the most extreme heretics who don't believe in the Torah being God-given and so on, it's only 2,700 or 2,800 years old. But the things that were said then or before have been proven to be carried out in history as the prophets saw forward that this would be. And for me, that, and together with the amazing miracle of the resurrection of Am Yisrael, as I said before, like the Navi Chezkel said, is even more powerful than Yetziat Mitzrayim. By the way, the Navi Yirmiyahu says that in the future Geulah, we will no longer say, wow, Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim. We will say, wow, Hashem gathered us from four corners of the earth. So where are we on that route, on that road, from the peak being Yetziat Mitzrayim to the peak being gathering from all four corners of the earth, is an interesting question. But for me, living today, that's even more powerful. But again, that's personal, and someone else can think of it differently. Nathaniel.
I think that the idea of Venezuela is very actual, because in each time and even today, there are some people, some sage, some Nevi'im, some people who learn Torah, and on the other side, there are people who were not, we don't know how to read or to just accept what their master explained to them, and even today there are people who are very good in studying Torah. They study a lot, and there are people who doesn't believe in anything. So it's very good to have both sides of this explanation, and even today and on the past year as well, there are always those two parts of the people, more or less, but the very, let's say, very educated people, believers, and who study Torah, who knows everything about Torah, and the other one which are more the skeptics, and it's important to give both aspects of this question. So
It's nice, I think, about the Ibn Ezra is showing us this in the pasuk in the Torah, such a major pasuk, the first pasuk of Aseret HaDibrot, as sort of saying to us, you may be A or B, and a lot of times the A rabbis are going to be saying, this is the way to do it. Forget about those guys from B. And the B rabbis are going to be saying, this is the way to do it. Forget those guys. And Ibn Ezra is saying, you need both paths. To make space for both of them. And I think that's and it can be more than two. I think I consider that to be very valuable. Okay, let's give some time to part B for this evening. And here's an additional sheet. Okay, this should be 2 or 1. Here it is. Okay, I'm going to go on screen sharing with another source. No, wrong one. Here we are. Okay. Here we are. 2 paragraphs in what is known as Shmona Kvatzim, or different notebooks of HaRav Kook. The topic that we are getting into now is, what does it mean Hashem Echad? And what does Hashem Echad have to do with HaRav Kook dealing with heresy in our time? So let's read what HaRav Kook says. How foolish are those who do not reflect on the wonders of nature and its laws, on the greatness of God's works in the world. Without a solid, broad, and rich material outlook, the noble spiritual perspective becomes blurred. I use the word chutzpah here. The word in English, in Hebrew, is chutzpah. And the Chat GPT translation for chutzpah was, I don't remember, maybe foolishness or something. But I think there's no good translation for the word chutzpah. And I think chutzpah was great. All chutzpah and heresy, meaning chutzpah towards Hashem, chutzpah of saying, I don't believe in you, that kind of thing. All chutzpah and heresy come into the world as a protest on behalf of the material, against those who overly exalt spirit doing injustice to matter by neglecting or persecuting it, whether in practical life or in intellectual thought. But those who engage with the material honestly and justly, whether by giving proper regard to the body and its needs, to society and its earthly demands, or by devoting time to scientific contemplation of all material values in the earth and the heavens and all they contain, while keeping their eyes and hearts directed toward the spirit and the soul that transcends all, these are the ones who bring the blessing of happiness and peace into the world. They are the people of valor, touched by God in their hearts, builders of ruins and restorers of paths. People of valor is another choice of translation. The Hebrew is bnei chayil. Chayil is like soldiers. But I thought if I put in soldiers, it would seem too much like military. It's people who are on a mission. They're part of a group of soldiers on their way to a certain mission. These are the people of valor. So what is HaRav Kook saying here? Some people have put down the material world, have persecuted the material existence so much that spirituality loses out. They think that it's a struggle. It's an all or nothing struggle between spirituality and materialism. So they're all out against the material world of being important. You know, it's this kind of pikuach nefesh. We take a little bit from the material world because, well, otherwise we're going to die. So we have to eat and drink, and that's about it. Make little of the material world because it's dangerous. It poses a threat to spirituality, to being a lofty person, and so on. And HaRav Kook says you've overdone it. And the result is you've put down the materialistic world so much, the material existence, you don't study it, you don't see the wonders of God in it, you don't see how important it is, that what's happening is it's backfiring against you, that people are becoming chutzpahnik against spirituality because you've oppressed them. Because it's like a slave that you're oppressing, and one day you see suddenly that he has strength, and you're not holding him down with chains, and so he rebels and he starts beating you up. So he says again, I'm going to read, how foolish are those who do not reflect on the wonders of nature and its laws, which include the greatness of God's work in the world. If you don't have a solid foundation of broad and rich material outlook, you don't have the foundation for moving higher up to the noble spiritual perspective. It gets blurred. If you're not healthy, you don't have a healthy body, and you try to study and be a spiritual person, it's going to be all blurred. You can't. You have to be strong and healthy, and then you can move on to move higher up to higher things. And if you do this in an extreme way, and if you raise children this way, what are children going to be if not have chutzpah? And their chutzpah is going to be rejecting all of your spiritual teachings. Chutzpah and heresy come into the world as a protest on behalf of the material against those, on behalf of material, against those who overly exalt spirit, so much so that they cause injustice or by neglecting or even persecuting the material. Whether it's in practical life, making material things unimportant, making them weak, not taking care of them, or in intellectual thought saying it's not important, not studying it, and so on. That's one kind of person. The other kind of people are those who engage with the material honestly and justly by giving the proper regard to the body and its needs, to society's earthly demands. You have to have what's the word? Kalkala. You have to have
Economy.
Economy, thank you. You have to have a good economy. People need to make a living. You have to have good science. You have to have a country that functions in everyday things and in society's earthly needs. You need to devote time to scientific contemplation and development on understanding the physical material world. At the same time, these people have a hierarchy of values, and on the top of their values, they keep their eyes and hearts directed towards the spirit and the soul that transcends all. Their hierarchy of values puts what transcends all higher up, but on the basis of a proper, respectful, caring attitude to this world. And these people bring happiness and peace to the world. There has to be peace between body and soul as an individual as a society, as an existence. And these are people of value, have been touched by God in their hearts. They build ruins because other people ruin the physical world and they rebuild it. And they restore paths that can bring these two together. So heresy comes to the world, partially, says HaRav Kook, because this is also historical. Because we have been in Galut. HaRav Kook was born in 1865. When Am Yisrael has been in Galut for more than 1,700, 1,800 years, because we've been thrown around from one exile to another exile, because we had no physical respect or reasonable level. Here and there, we had short spans of time where we had some, as a nation, even not that, we had here and there. So you have in Spain, you have this, you have that, but as a nation, we had no respect and no proper physical existence. So we turned into a nation of spirituality, neglecting and persecuting the physical material reality. And so much so that the people who are very, or think of themselves as very strong religiously, neglect or persecute materialism. And it becomes an ideal of being religious. And so other people rebel against that, react against that with chutzpah and heresy. And when we come back to Eretz Yisrael in the beginning of the 20th century, at the end of the 19th century, says HaRav Kook, that's not going to work. We have to create a better balance, a better relationship between the material and the spiritual. The spiritual is still the top. We keep our eyes and our hearts directed towards spirit and soul that transcends all, but on the basis of a proper, healthy attitude to the material world. I think this is fascinating. It's an amazing piece. It's an example of other places where he discusses this. But the idea that chutzpah and heresy come to the world because we've overlooked or neglected or persecuted materialism, I think it's an amazing concept. And
what's the citation for this?
Second, you retain your hierarchy of values, but the bottom rungs on that ladder are very important and should be respected and not persecuted. Vakasha, Ilana?
I'm sorry, this is Rav Kook, but what's the source?
Here it is.
COVID.
He has 8 notebooks, which are just spilling out his soul into notebooks without any order or planning. It's just totally spontaneous. Thousands of paragraphs, just spontaneously pouring into notebooks. And all we have, I mean, you can take them and put them in order, and some of it, a little bit it was, but it's the way these 8 notebooks are, it's just as they were. Notebook A, paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is notebook 1, paragraph 590. That's all it is.
Thank you.
It's also a great teaching of HaRav Kook, who wanted to make closer the Filoni and Datim people. And with the creation of the state, the recreation of the state of Israel, in fact, it's not like we are all individual, we are a people, we are Ham Israel. And some people have to study Torah and to be part of the spiritual world, and other ones have to make the country living in economic way, scientific way, and all those things. And we are all part of the same people, the same nation, and all of us together, we should go to this goal, and it's not only spiritual, but it's also like the tikkun olam that other people can also bring. Could be more material, because if we look today, especially today, with all the progress we have in all these scientific things that make the world better, it's also something very important, because we are part of Hashem creation, and we help also creating a better world. And with all the scientific things, it's not only the Torah, but it's also all these material things which help making our nation, but also the world better with all those things. So it's very powerful.
What you're saying is proof that you understood, because HaRav Kook says that explicitly in many places, and he even says what you're saying. He mamashi says that there are these two different sides. They need to respect one another and understand that each one needs the other, and work together. He even writes in a letter that he came to Eretz Israel, like he had a calling. He heard Hashem calling him to come and bring these two sides that are always struggling against one another and bring them to make peace between them and be able to function together. And to this day, we still need people to do that. Mark,
I find a couple of things.
the physical scientist, yes,
I find a couple of things really fascinating.
also a spiritual person.
One thing I find fascinating is the idea that, you know, if you are not anchored in the material world and you see something absolutely beautiful in nature, and okay, you know, it's beautiful nature, but so what? I'm not impressed because, you know, it's all given by God, and so I don't have to be impressed by it, which is really sad, because when you see something beautiful, whether you believe in God or you don't, you should be impressed, be able to enjoy something beautiful. And so I find this very nice, because it says, you know, that you need to enjoy things that are beautiful, regardless of where that beauty might originate from.
And also that
One thing.
there's also that different aspects of the beauty of it. There's an aspect of a very naive understanding of it. You see something and it looks pretty, and you look at it for whatever number of minutes you decide to, and then you move on. Or you can look at it and study it and understand how it came about, not in a scientific sense, and what it's made up of, and how it functions, and be even more impressed by what you're seeing. So, you know, if you overlook it, you're missing out on part of the beauty that's there.
Indeed. And the
Which
second
is true
thing-
also about not only physical things in nature, it's also true about humanistic aspects, like poetry.
You can be superficial or you can be deeper.
Yeah.
The other thing that I'd like to comment on is that there's an asymmetry here. There's a criticism of being too spiritual.
Yeah.
There's no criticism of being too materialistic.
Okay, first of all, just in case anyone missed that, Mark is saying there's an asymmetry here because HaRav Kook is criticizing someone who's being unbalanced in favor of the spiritual side. But what about criticizing someone who's unbalanced in the direction of the materialistic side? First of all, well, I'll find some passages that he says that. I don't know if we're going to get to it. It's not what we need from him, but it's there. Second of all, he does create a hierarchy. And you know, if you lose your vision of what transcends all, and you end up just being a scientist or somebody who deals with materialistic things, then clearly HaRav Kook says you're missing the main thing. So he does say that here, even though he doesn't put it in the way of explicitly being critical, but I think it's clear that, you know, and that's not his challenge. His challenge is to say, but I would say I agree with you. I agree with you in the sense, going back to what Mitael said, that's also part of the problem. Because if people take things to an extreme of only materialistic things are important, then as individuals and as a nation, we're losing out. And then if we don't, it's okay. If you're a person who spends his time and his profession on material things, but then have an appreciation for people who also give us, you know, kind of a spiritual content to our nation, to our country, to our state, and so on. So that's also, when that goes to an extreme, there are, I don't know if we should call it heretics, but there are people are going to be, they're not only going to disagree with you, they're going to be struggling against you because you're taking it to the other extreme. So it can go both ways. Yes.
It struck me that it seemed, at least superficially, a little naive to just simply say that people that really pay attention to the material side of things are the ones that are going to automatically bring peace and happiness into the world. It seems to me that that's the opposite side.
No. It's the people who while they maintain keeping their eyes and hearts directed toward the spirit and soul that transcends all, at the same time they devote time to scientific contemplation, material values, the physical, the needs of the body or the earthly demands for the society. They see both sides. It's not only the material.
Okay. So looking for the big package.
That's HaRav Kook.
Value, man.
Okay, do we have time for the second one, or should we just leave that for next time? What do you say? I'll do it. Let's do it. And we'll keep it short. Okay, it goes like this. Again, looking for, here you are. Okay, here we are. Again, that was the first notebook. This is the 7th notebook, paragraph number 89. It's also brought in a compilation that was put together later on by one of HaRav Kook's leading students, Rav Nazir. But that's a different story. But here it is. Again, I have an issue with the translation. How do you translate dveikut? I even tried to check on the computer if he would understand if I asked him, how do you translate dveikus? Because the way for Americans to say dveikut ba'Hashem is dveikus, but he didn't get it. Dveikut is I'm close to Hashem. I'm davek. I'm kind of attached, or I'm glued to Hashem. Okay, so this is dveikut, gluing on to Hashem, to spiritual things. So that's the dveikut. The term in Hebrew, the paragraph starts in Hebrew with the words hadvekut Elohit. The divine attachment, which is the life force of all existence. Everything that exists is glued or screwed onto something divine, something godly. Nothing exists without its connection to something godly. That's what he means by the divine attachment, which is the life force of all existence, never truly departs from any being. The heretic who I'm not reading, I'm saying the heretic who has, or Eliezer called him before, what was the word you used? I'm sorry, I'm missing the term.
I didn't say it.
No. A person who doesn't believe in God, you gave him a different name before.
Fair.
No, in English.
Devotion is the Veikut is.
No, not Vekut, not Vekut.
A heretic.
No,
What are you looking
atheist.
for?
Yeah, thank you, an atheist. And the atheist, while he's atheistizing, has a godly component in him which enables him to exist. The divine attachment never truly departs from any being. And yet the elevation of all that exists depends on the presence of this divine attachment as it shines through awareness and feeling, and as it becomes embodied in life and action. In other words, it's always there, but it's stronger, and it gives more strength to life when it's in awareness and a feeling. It can be I can deny it, or I cannot see it, or I cannot believe in it, and it's still there, but it's stronger, and it gives life force when I am aware of it and I feel it. In this lies the unique power of Torah and prayer. Torah and prayer is about bringing the divine attachment into my life, into my actions, into my soul, of service and mitzvot, service of Hashem and performing mitzvot. Any mitzvah, performing any mitzvah, is bringing the divine attachment, the divine presence into my life, into where I am. And serving Hashem is saying it's not only about me, there's something above me which I serve, which is I'm bringing it, I'm making that a part of my life. And in whatever way a person becomes filled with divine light in his desire and his awareness, meaning I desire divine attachment and I'm aware of it, in the very core of his intellect and desires, meaning I'm studying something, and it's at the core of what I'm trying to study, trying to understand, because I want to see where do I find God in this, and it's in the core of things that I want to do, that I want to achieve, that I aspire to reach in life. To that same extent, all things connected to reality are uplifted by the loftiness of divinity. The more I am aware of it, the more I bring it into everything I do in life, the more I am connecting divinity to reality. And this is the part that I like best. The divine will is not a will that rejects other wills, but rather a will that ennobles them. Makes them, I wasn't sure which translation to use, makes them great, makes them powerful. A will that refines and polishes desire. A will that removes all deficiency and weakness from every desire and establishes or places life and reality upon the firmest, loftiest, most flourishing and vibrant foundation. So HaRav Kook is saying the divine will, or my desire to have divine attachment, Dvekut Elohit. Religious people often think of Dvekut Elohit as something that rejects something else. I have a desire to eat something non-kosher, comes my divine attachment and says to me, no. So it's throwing aside, it's overriding my natural will to eat something or something else physical that I want, or I want to say something or do something on Shabbat that I'm not allowed to. The divine will is always overriding other things in life. Says HaRav Kook, no, you got it wrong. It's not the divine will fighting against other things in the world. What it's doing is it's making them greater, it's refining and polishing them. Because a lot of things in life are very, I'm looking again for a certain word in English, pre-something. They're like very animal-like, very, not primitive, but there's another word similar to that, more something. It's like something that it's there, but it needs to be refined. I'm not trying to erase it. I'm trying to refine it. Like a parent, when a parent restricts a child, I'm not against the child. I'm trying to direct his behavior. If he is upset about something, he's allowed to be upset about it. If I can teach him how to talk about it and explain what he's feeling rather than having a tantrum about it, I'm not overriding him and trying to put him down. I'm trying to take his powers and enable them to come out, to be expressed in a more constructive way, in a more refined way. Says HaRav Kook, the divine will is never out there to reject and override and get rid of other things that exist in the world. It's a will that is making other things stronger. It's taking deficiencies and solving them, taking weaknesses and making them strong, making everything in life to be able to exist upon a firm, lofty, flourishing, and vibrant foundation. And that is because the divine attachment is the life force of all existence. So every desire that a person has, it may be expressed in a way that is against the rules, the halachot of the Torah. And that gives us the feeling that divine attachment is by putting aside other things and neglecting them, or as we said in the previous paragraph, or even, what was the word, or even persecuting them. But HaRav Kook is saying he didn't get it right. It's not about persecuting them or canceling them or erasing them. It's about refining them. You restrict them, and then they come out in a more refined, and they, in the long run, they will be stronger and flourish and be more vibrant than if you just let them out spontaneously without directing them. What do you think about this?
It's good. Sounds interesting. Okay.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Can you say, Mark is saying it's very beautiful. Can you try and
Yeah, it tethers us. In other words, we can, if we're just in it for ourselves, we can do anything we want. We're very powerful. We know everything, and we can do everything we want. We can do anything we want. Ultimately, of course, that's self-destructive. So it needs some restraint. It needs some channeling, as you said. We can throw a tantrum and destroy everything, which maybe is exactly what we're doing here, I think. Or we can appeal to some wiser, more steady hand outlook and tether ourselves and restrain ourselves and channel ourselves. Restrain is the wrong name. Channeling is much better.
I think channeling comes from being able to restrain. I think halakha teaches us to be able to restrain, not just be spontaneous, and then we can channel. If we don't have the ability to restrain,
well,
you can't channel.
It may be semantic, but I like the way you put channel, because let's think of a river. Okay, you can restrain a river by putting a dam. Ultimately, of course, the water overflows the dam.
Right.
So restraint is not there. On the other hand, you can divert the river a little bit. You can channel it. So maybe it was just semantics, but I like channel. Which is your word, so I can say I like it.
I would like to say that the reason I bring this is because the idea of Hashem Echad. Hashem Echad, the idea of Hashem being one, is not about Hashem is one and he's over there and he's fighting against all kinds of worldly things that we care about or that we need, but it's the exact opposite. It's the idea of Hashem's oneness is that all of the reality is part of that oneness. If you disconnect it from the divine attachment, then it loses its spirit, it loses its soul, and it's going to dwindle. If you give it, if you fight against it because you think that's the right thing to do, then you're going to cause a lot of damage. If you can refine it and channel it by giving it its divine spirit through the divine attachment, then everything can find a good place in life. And this has again to do with heresy, because the generation is very independent. Again, we're talking about the 19th, 20th centuries. There's a lot of freedom, there's a lot of intellect. People have thrown off their shoulders the yoke of religion. And so, religion used to do it because it was the only option. But once there's freedom and intellect, and people chose in the free world, the majority of people chose that they don't want and they don't need religion. So religion is perceived as something that's against us. And then HaRav Kook is saying, no, it's not against this. All these values that you have, they can be socialist values. They can be individualistic values, just to take two kind of maybe extremes. They have a place. They all need to be channeled. And divine content and making that connection to the divine source of it enables us to refine them and channel them, and everything find its place within the whole broader picture of the world and of life. And that's why it's a way of looking at it which will not bring heresy. Because if I understand God to be against me, either I will bow down, let God step over me and put me down and accept God's yoke, or I am going to be against God. And if I understand that God is a father, or if you'd like a mother, that's okay also. If God is a parent, channeling me, channeling my strengths, my abilities, I think much more people can accept that yoke than if I understand God as something that's putting me down. And that's the oneness. When I say Hashem Echad, that's part of what I mean when I say it. Hashem Elokeinu, Elohim is the power of the world. All the powers that we see in the world, Hashem Echad, they're all part of Hashem Echad. These are not Hashem is one over there and the world is on the other side. The world, everything in the world is part of Hashem Echad and has a divine aspect to it.
So he's in the trenches.
What?
He's in the trenches with us.
Yes, that's also true. Yes. Yes, in our difficulties, in our challenges, individual and national and world, international. Yes.
So
This is what's called monotheism.
Go ahead, Michael.
Monotheism. This is what it's called, monotheism.
Yes, but it's not monotheism about there is only one God. There is a world and there's one God, and God is against the world and choose God over the world. It's monotheism saying there is only one, the world is one. Hashem
Right.
is one and the whole world is part of that oneness.
Right.
It's not Hashem or the world. It's find
Right.
Hashem in the world.
Right. Only one.
Michael.
I think there are real world consequences to the attitudes that you just described. That the state of culture in the world, certainly in the Western world, has changed, I think, drastically for the worse since people have moved away from the idea of God, the belief in God, certainly the belief that we need organized religion, which is much, much less today than it was even 40, 50 years ago.
Mhm.
And we're seeing that in our cities and elsewhere, just poor behavior. You can be an atheist, but that doesn't mean it changes what God is doing in the world. It means that it diminishes you. I think people that deny God's place in the world are living a contracted existence. They refuse to accept at least a very important part of reality. But they can be very dangerous to the rest of us because they don't have any restrictions on their behavior.
But what I like here is that what I find here is how do what I feel or think that HaRav Kook is giving me here is a constructive way to react to that. Because if I go to war against it, okay, we're going to beat one another's throats. I don't know what's going to come of that. Will I win? Will I lose? If I win, how much damage will be done to my side of the struggle? HaRav Kook is giving me, from my perspective, HaRav Kook is giving us a constructive way to look at this and to say, your values, what you're fighting for, has a place in God's world. Let's look for that place. You're not interested in it. Okay, I am. I am going to look to try to find the place of what you're saying in God's world. And if I do that, I can make a deeper peace between you and other people who think differently than you. And maybe even at the end of the road, maybe even you will be able to let go of your rejection of God, because you can have something that's important to you within God's divinity, rather than instead of believing in something which is divine. That's why I think of it as being constructive.
I like that.
Don.
Well, I think this is all really, when it comes to it at an individual personal level, it's about choice. Maybe I don't know how to do it at a societal or a larger level, but at the individual level, it's a choice. I can believe, I can go with the program of the mitzvot from Hashem, and I can feel Hashem's control over everything. But if I don't, then really nobody can make me, including Hashem. I mean, it's really a very personal and individual thing.
But I think two things. First of all, again, what I think HaRav Kook is doing here is broadening our options. You make the choice, and it's personal. I agree, totally agree. But HaRav Kook is offering us a possibility of broadening our options, because there's an option of finding the thing that you want to choose within divinity instead of against divinity. It gives you another option. And it can be constructive.
I mean, he's opening our eyes to see the bigger picture.
And for some people, hopefully many people, it can help them make a different choice. And the second point I'd like to make is that a lot of individuals at the end of not of the day, it'll take more than a day, but in the long run, a lot of individuals change society. So right here, right now, we have 10 individuals who can make up a group. And if we have 10 of these groups, then we've got 100 people. And then we can, then we can try and 10 times that, we can have 1,000 people, so we can try and, will I change the world? Maybe, who knows, maybe not. But will I make a change in the world? That's more of a realistic goal, using these tools. Last but not least, Eliezer, because we're going to have to let people go. Bakasha.
See the beauty of the world, see the beauty of what Hashem does. You don't have to just look far away. You can look close by. And of course, the mitzvot give you a framework how you can do this, but you appreciate the beauty of things. And beautiful piece of music, beautiful poem. And you have a community, then they join the light. The light doesn't necessarily cancel each other. to reinforce each other. So that's what you get from a synagogue, I think like that. The light all strengthened, but you don't have to shove it away. And that's sort of what you're saying.
Yeah. Okay. To be continued. I believe 2 weeks from now is still not yet Hanukkah, right? Yeah, Hanukkah is 4
Thank
weeks
you
away.
very much. Thank
So
you.
we
very
meet
much.
again 2 weeks from today.
Have a good flight.
Light?
Where are you
No,
going?